Hey there, this is Mike Bankhead, your host, bass player and songwriter from Dayton, Ohio. Welcome to episode 5. On this episode, I'll be talking to another songwriter, but this one uses tools that you might not think of to get the job done. She uses her voice, a looper pedal, and professional level understanding of music theory to write and compose. Oh, also, in case you forgot, the name of this podcast happens to be Get ready for an enjoyable conversation with a very talented musician who has an effervescent personality. I think you're going to like this one. Let's go. Today on the You Could Be My Air Miss podcast, we have the very talented Nina Pelligra. Hello, Nina, and welcome.
Hi. Good to be here. Good to talk to you.
Like, happy and ready to go today. Like, I'm miserable and grumpy, and you're going to get me out of the grumpiness, I think.
Yes. I would love to try.
So why don't you tell the lovely listeners how we met?
I don't even know how long it was. Probably a few years. We've known each other for a while, but so we met in Nashville at the CD Baby DIY Musicians Conference. And you were just like so nice. You were just like definitely the friendliest person in the entire room. And I remember we went back to the conference the next year and, met up, and you were just introducing me to all these new friends that you were making. The conference is so cool. Like, and all the people are so cool that were there, so friendly, and like everyone kind of connecting about, trying to follow their dreams and stuff. It's a good experience. I feel like everyone was trying to do the same thing, even if they were in different stages, we were all kind of in the same boat.
Yeah. What's the most interesting thing that you took out of your conference experience, other than the networking part?
Honestly, I think what's most interesting is that, so I studied music industry at Syracuse University, and but the music industry is changing all the time. And I feel like none of what they could teach you in school is actually relevant. I mean, some of it, like the basics, but they just get you started. So I think what was most interesting is like how wrong certain ways of thinking are now that had applied in the past, like what worked even at the time of the conference, like doesn't necessarily work today. It's more important to just kind of adapt and keep up with, the evolving technology and strategies, and, because it changes everything, changes how people consume music.
You mentioned you went to Syracuse. What was your major?
I was a music industry major with a concentration in voice honors. So
that sounds like you could sing.
Yeah. So, I mostly studied classical voice, but I remember my voice teacher was always so frustrated because he was like, Nina, like you could, be like an early Baroque singer in Europe and like tour and things like that. But I was like, no, like I want to sing Avril Lavigne, like, I didn't want to do that. I just drawn to like popular music.
By the way, I knew you could sing. I was asking that question for podcast reasons. You have a record out. Tell me about it.
I do. I think I released it the very first month of like lockdown in Boston, which was like interesting. It was either like just in time or a little, I don't know. But it was like March 2020 when it was released. And it's just like a 4-song EP, and it's all a cappella. So I guess I kind of got into that niche of like a cappella, like Pitch Perfect type music, which I can do live on my looper. But for this record, I did like 3 a cappella covers and an original song. It's called Sense of Self. Sense of Self being the the one that I wrote. And I actually wrote it on my loop pedal, but then decided to adapt it for the recording. And it actually started at SU. I was studying voice. I was in a cappella groups. I was in like 4 choirs as well, like vocal jazz, classical, like all of it. Um, just like a lot of group singing. And so I kind of focused on like studio recording, choral music, and composition. So it all just kind of came together. And so a lot of those songs I just had been working on, like playing around with over the last few years because I was like still learning and I loved arranging and singing. And then, I started writing original music. So that's kind of like my debut for what's to come. I do have more planned out that I'm excited to get going.
You have things to say. So that's what makes us write songs, right?
I guess so. I mean, I think songwriting is interesting because once someone else is listening to it, it's not about you anymore, you know? So actually that kind of helps. Like when it feels like you're kind of putting too much out there into a song or that it might be weird or something like that. It's just like, it's good to remember it's not up to you whether they think it's weird or not, or what they're going to take from it. If they understand it or not, they can understand it in a completely different way than I intended. So just put it out there.
That's very wise, especially if anyone listening is nervous about letting other people hear their work. Let those babies go.
Yeah, and you never know like who's gonna kind of resonate with it, and it might not be for the same reasons that you wrote it.
I am fascinated by your looping and arrangement skills. I'm going to explain it really simply for folks that might not have understood. So Nina, using just her voice, her excellent trained ears, and her ability to not be pitchy when she sings, arranges these songs where she sings all of the instrumental parts and then sings all of the lead parts. And I find that fascinating that you can, in your head, arrange all the parts in advance. How long did it take you to figure out how to do that?
How long?
Like, are we talking, is this the work of years?
No, it was pretty quick. And I think the reason that is because like I got into it because I watched other people do it. Like one of my favorite singers, she's a French jazz musician. Her name's Cyril Amy. And I saw her using it. So I was like, went down the YouTube rabbit hole of like all the music that she did on her loop pedal. And she's a jazz musician, like she's a vocalist. So it's not like, usually you see like beatboxers and stuff like that, which do like totally cool stuff that I can't do, but kind of she was just herself in it. And it kind of made me feel like, yeah, I can just do what I'm good at on it, So I figured out like what she was using and I bought that like exact same model. And I started by literally copying what she was doing, So like I went on YouTube and like I learned what she was singing, what she was recording, and how to do it on the machine. So and I feel like that's, like you learn any instrument, right? You start learning piano by playing songs, you start learning guitar by playing Taylor Swift songs, so yeah, that's how I learned. And then eventually I understood how it worked and I started getting my own ideas. And yeah, it came pretty naturally to me, actually, especially because I have the a cappella background and my vocal arranging style to begin with is like, has always been built on like building up to something and adding pieces in and crossing over. So that's why I was drawn to it in the first place. Yeah. So I've always loved arranging, and like in school, like I have a Bachelor of Music degree. So it is music industry, but the most important thing in school they wanted us to learn is like music theory and voice leading, circle of fifths, all this like kind of Western music theory. And that really helped my songwriting and composition. And I started joining music theory in high school, actually, because we had this amazing band teacher who was very flexible and kind of let you be creative and figure things out. I've always been very interested in the relationship between notes, makes different sounds.
Yep.
Music. It's just wild.
It is also so much more involved than I feel most people realize.
I guess what's going through my mind is okay, what style am I in? What kind of sound or feeling am I going for? What music theory rules do I have to break? Like you mentioned, voice leading, right? If you're looking for a more kind of ballad, legato, kind of pretty sound, then yeah, you want your voice leading to be a certain way, you want to kind of keep the notes as close together as possible by keep changing the chords. But if you're looking for something kind of aggressive and intense, you want parallel fifths. So it's just blocks of notes and doing the same thing. Or, if you're looking for melodic kind of gospel harmonies, then the fifth is on the bottom and then you have the root in the third. A third harmony on top is always going to be pleasing, but you don't always want pleasing, right? So it's those are the things you think about.
I love nerdy music theory talk.
I'm such a nerd.
Yeah, me too. That's probably why they get along.
Yeah.
So you spend a lot of time these days making records for other people, whether they be hard copy or digital. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, again, I have this a cappella background and the studio recording background. So kind of since the pandemic, I really wanted to get into a more entrepreneurial lifestyle, right? So I started reaching out to a lot of a cappella groups who actually weren't even able to sing together the past year, which was very sad for them because college can be really intense and hard. And I remember a cappella was the chance you get to just feel joy and be with your friends and sing and just kind of let off some steam. And a lot of the students weren't really getting that. So I talked to some a cappella friends and basically wanted to help them stay active, but still have fun, not because a lot of virtual classes or virtual practices, it just starts to feel like work, the fun stuff is kind of sucked out of it. I felt that because before that, I was working for a recording studio in Boston, Plaid Dog Recording, look it up. But, I was working from home for a while and it's well, the fun part was being in the studio.
Yeah.
So, I basically I've been working with a cappella groups and helping them to make recordings, but easily and in a fun way. So I'm helping them record on their cell phones, right? And part of that is just giving feedback and making sure that they can hear themselves together. Right. So for example, once they send in some practice tracks, I would send them a demo of what it all sounds like so far, and they can follow the progress. So it feels like they're working towards something. So I've been helping them record and then of course editing and mixing so that they do have a studio sounding product at the end, and a couple alumni projects that they wanted to work on have been really fun. So that's been my main focus.
If anyone needs vocal arranging skills, you can go find Nina. She can handle it for you. But what I heard is you also have engineering skills and mixing skills and production skills, which, and this is not cool, I don't run into too many women that do engineering and production. And it's maybe that I know it's not as if there are not women who have that skill set and are in the industry. I just haven't personally run into too many. I wonder why that is sometimes.
Yeah, it is interesting. And what I've noticed is that when a man kind of walks into the studio, he knows what he's doing unless he proves otherwise, right? Unless he like messes up, or it's like you, after a few minutes, you're like, wait a second. With a woman, it's the other way around. When they come in, they assume that they're not really qualified until they prove that they do know what they're talking about, right? So often, if I'm walking into a room, certain rooms, this is not like black and white, right? Obviously, there's lots of spaces and like supportive people, and actually a cappella production has been an amazing space. Like there's some really well-respected female engineers in this particular field, which is awesome. But yeah, sometimes it feels like for men, they have to prove that they're not qualified, and for a woman they have to actually prove that they are qualified. It's just the assumption is different when you walk into a room. I've seen a couple like newer engineers looking for an opportunity, right? And I feel like a younger male engineer is a little bit not expected to be perfect, right? Where I feel like a young woman getting into the field is being tested. You know what I mean? They have to jump through hoops.
That is patently unfair.
It's hard, and you got to be tough.
As a person who has no engineer skills, that doesn't make sense to me. I want to hire someone who knows how to do the job and someone with whom I have a good rapport. I happen to have a person that fits those characteristics here. But if I lived in Syracuse, I would hire Nina, because if you say I'm an engineer, I don't really care your gender or what you look like. That's a skill set I don't have. So I will pay you to do professional engineering stuff.
We should definitely do something.
We should. We did a little thing, and this is where I get to talk about it. Right. Briefly, because you're more interesting than me. I am going to release a single called Hold the Wick, and you remixed it. How about we play it for the people listening?
Hold the wick, light it up with me. Touch the surfaces you doused with gasoline. Hold the wick, brandish it by day. Grip it tighter when the wax has dripped away. Capillary action pulls you higher. So hold the wick. Stare into the flame. Steel yourself for what it takes to play the game. Hold the wick. Wave it all around. Gloating over the lives you burn to the ground. Capillary action pulls you higher. So hold the wick. Hold the wick. You will get yours too. So hold the wick. Hold the wick. Hold the wick.
was your approach to doing that remix?
That's a hard question because, you know, sometimes I was actually listening back to it like a while ago, like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, how did I come up with that? Sometimes I like look back at stuff that I've done and I'm like, how did I do that? Like, what, how did I come up with that? And then start to get panicked because I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, did I forget how to do this? You know what I mean? Like, I can't recreate that. Does that mean like I'm losing it or something? Right. But like, I don't know, like you put it in front of me and it's like something comes out, you know? And I think that was a lot of like your song inspired me. You know, it's very dynamic and it does build and it's got like this like awesome intensity to it. So I mean, I can walk you through like what I actually did when I sat down, right? So first thing I do is just like listen to the song like 100 times. Like just sit there and listen, you know, because I want to learn the song that you wrote, you know. I want to know it really well. And then so I use sheet music. I use a free musical notation software called MuseScore. Keep it simple. And I just like wrote out your lead vocal part so that I have something to follow along with.
This is the part I really wanted to hear. So I'm glad you go there. Continue, please.
Yeah. I mean, I would just start listening from the beginning. Once I had that framework, you know, I'm just kind of hearing different melodies in my head, right? So I would just pause, write it down.
I write it down. You mean actually on sheet music?
Well, on the computer, but yes, with musical notation. I mean, I have it. Like,
I find that fascinating.
I actually have the sheet music. Like, can I show you?
You did.
Okay, great.
I wish I could show the listeners, but this is an audio podcast, so I can't. But it's really cool. And I read sheet music like the way a 3-year-old reads English, really slowly and only kind of accurately. I'm not 100% ignorant, but I am, you know, I don't speak it like a language. And you clearly do. And I feel like that's an awesome skill set. How many times do you have to hear a melody before you can write it on sheet music? Is what I want to know.
It's pretty instantaneous. Like, it's easier for me to write it down than actually sing it if it's in my head.
So you look at this song and you're like, oh, this song's an F. So I know that the melody is going to be in this area, right? Is that kind of how you do it?
Yeah, right. So like if I'm looking at the sheet music and I know it's an F, I know that the tonic is going to be an F, right? And so then I know where the third and the fifth is. I know where the seventh is on the staff. So that's how I think of it. And you know, as a vocalist, I don't really think in like note names, like note letters. I think of like solfege, like do, re, mi, harmonies, right? So I think in like, you know, the root, the third and the fifth and the seventh and everything in between and the relationship to make those harmonies or where the melody is. So, you know, if I'm hearing a melody in my head, I'm hearing the note number, I guess. And then whatever key it's in, I just put it on paper on the computer.
I really wish I could do that.
I mean, it took a lot of practice. You know, I have a degree in it, right? And also like solfege was something that was drilled into my head since I was like 9. You know, so my whole life I've just, as a singer, having to learn music, and not just in school. Like I did like community theater, like musicals and out, you know, extracurricular choirs and things like that. So it's just like my whole life, like you said, it's like reading English, right? You just do it for so long and you get better as the years go by. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the language that I've been using. And once the ideas go on paper, then I can start thinking about adding harmonies and thinking about like, well, does this, like making it good, right? Do I want this to be like a parallel harmony or do I want like smoother voice leading? Do I want this to be in a different octave? You know, just kind of tweaking the idea and making it more methodical, I guess.
How do you decide, given the stems, for listeners who might not know music terms, when you record a song, the stems are each individual piece of the song broken out. So snare drums on one, bass drums on one, bass is here, guitar one's here, all the little pieces. You have all these little pieces. How do you decide what to keep in your remix and what to not keep?
That was kind of hard. Because I mean, you could probably tell, like, I kind of changed some of the chords around. I even changed like some of the notes you were singing.
But that's cool.
Thank you. I don't know why. Again, I don't know why. What made me decide to do that? It started, and I started singing, and like the song was inspiring. So I think the thing I worked on the most was the bass line. Obviously, you played the bass, right?
Yep.
It's really good. So I wanted to keep that performance. And I actually I tried singing a bass line too. And I was like, nah, I can do something here. So basically I had to find pieces of the stem that fit, basically the new, whatever works with that chord progression that I had made. And I even, like I said, singing the bass line in my head was helpful because I could say okay, well, I want something that sounds like this. And then I could find the piece of the bass line and move it there. And then there was a note here or there that I used, like Melodyne, to just boop, I want this down just to this note. So I have that advantage of using tuning software if I needed to change a note here or there to make it work. But yeah, I wanted to keep that performance, and I definitely copied and pasted a lot of it, especially I really loved those just you plucked and just let it ring out with this nasty tone in a good way.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, we got to keep those, and even highlight them, because I think I did some vocals with that swell to even highlight it more. Loved the bass line. That was a lot of it. A lot of the guitar parts. Did you play the guitars too?
I don't play guitar, so I did not.
Yeah. Okay. Some of it didn't really fit with the chords, so I didn't use a lot of it, but there was definitely a few places where it just made it feel a bit more full. And that guitar solo, that riff, so I was like, okay, this is going to be its own shiny moment.
Jeremy, I hope you're listening. The gentleman who played that's name is Jeremy. So officially, your guitar solo, I believe riffs was the term, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're going to go with.
And that actually, I think in the song, I imagined as the climax, that was where everything was going to happen. That guitar solo just brought us into where a cacophony.
I am so pleased that you agreed to do this.
Me too. I'm pleased that you reached out, because it really was such a fun project. And I like the song. I like what everyone did. I really do.
I am really looking forward. This is coming out in January, by the way. So the song and its remixes are not yet released. So you got to hear Dina's remix here exclusively, actually, until such time as it hits streaming services. But that's why you ask professionals to help you. They end up doing awesome stuff. I'm going to tell you where you can find Nina on the internet. Her website is ninapelligra.com. And I'm going to spell that in case you happen to be spelling challenged. N as in Nina, I-N-A, P as in Pelligra, Elligra, ninapelligra.com. On her website, there are some videos. You can find her album. There are links to her social. Go find her, go follow her, keep in touch with what she is up to musically. Mostly because you're a very nice and talented individual, and the people deserve to know that.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Mike. Seriously, I really loved working on this. Put some love into it. So cool. I love what you're doing.
Thank you for being a guest on the podcast. And I would love to have you back on. You're going to have to make another record, and then I could have you back on to promote it. Okay.
All right. I'm on it.
Excellent.
Thank you very much to Nina Pelligra for her fine work on remixing Hold the Wick, and also for being a guest on this podcast. Thank you, dear listener, for listening to this podcast. I would very much appreciate it if you would subscribe wherever you happen to listen to podcasts, and also maybe leave a review. On the next episode, episode 6, I'll be talking to an accomplished piano player. Until then, this is the You Could Be My Aramis podcast.